Some people lose sleep over stress, over regrets, over things left unsaid. I lose sleep over a door. A small locked door it's barely 3 feet tall and sitting at the foot of a bed in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska. I lose sleep wondering what was behind it. I lose sleep wondering if it was ever really locked at all. Tonight I have 3 stories for you, 3 separate Airbnb stays, 3 moments that rewired something in my brain and left questions I still cannot answer. None of them involve ghosts. None of them involve anything supernatural. And somehow that makes every single one of them worse. Welcome to the id's shadow, where the darkest stories aren't fiction, they're just memories someone is still trying to forget. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a story. And drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from tonight. I read every single one. Now settle in. Turn the lights up if you need to. You're going to want to. Story 1, The Small Door. It was the end of April, and I was starting over. After years of building a life in Chicago, I had made the decision to pack everything up and move all the way out to Nevada. New state, new chapter, fresh slate. To make the logistics a little easier on myself, I hired a moving company to take all my boxes ahead of me, which meant I got to do something I'd always wanted. Take a proper road trip across the country. 3 full days on the open road. Just me, my car, and the highway. The total drive would take roughly 30 hours, so I broke it down into thirds. 10 hours each day with an overnight stop after each leg. Simple on paper, clean and manageable. I mapped it out, ran the numbers, and realized the first night stop would land me somewhere on the far edge of Nebraska. Now, Nebraska was never going to be the highlight of the trip. I knew that going in. I wasn't looking for an experience. I was looking for a bed. 8 hours of sleep and back on the road. So I scrolled through listings, looking for whatever was cheap and available, and I found a small 1-story home with 2 bedrooms at a price that honestly felt too good to pass up. There was one small thing I noticed. The listing only showed photos of 1 bedroom, not both, just 1. I told myself the host probably hadn't gotten around to photographing the other room. It wasn't worth overthinking. I booked it, finished packing my car the next morning, and hit the road. I left a little later than I'd planned, which meant by the time I was deep into Nebraska, it was fully dark. And I mean dark. If you have never driven through rural Nebraska at night, there are no words that quite prepare you for it. There are no city lights glowing on the horizon. No rest stops every few miles, no other cars. Just an endless flat black landscape stretching out on both sides of the road, and your headlights cutting a narrow tunnel through it. Hundreds of miles of nothing. The kind of dark that makes the inside of your car feel very small. A couple of hours after sundown, I turned off the long, empty road and down a short gravel path toward the property. My first feeling was disappointment. The outside of the house looked considerably more worn down than anything in the listing photos. Peeling paint at the corners, a porch light that flickered once when I pulled up, and then died completely. I sat in the car for a moment just looking at it, but I was exhausted. I had no other options within 100 miles, and I only needed it for a few hours. I grabbed a couple of bags and walked up to the front door. There was no key box. The host was supposed to leave one with a code. That's how these things usually work. But there was no key box. And when I looked closer at the door, I realized there wasn't a proper lock at all. It was a plain interior doorknob, the kind you'd put on a bathroom or a closet, not a door meant to keep anything out. I stood there on that porch in the dark, listening to the wind move across the flat, open fields around me, and I felt the first real pull of unease. But I turned the knob and stepped inside, and the inside was fine. More than fine, actually. Warm lighting, decent furniture, a clean, well-kept kitchen. My nerves had been building up, and now they started to unwind just a little. I went to find the bedroom. The first bedroom had no lock on the door. I moved to the second one. That door had a lock, so that became my room for the night. I set my bags down and started looking around, and that's when I saw it. On the wall, directly across from the foot of the bed, low to the ground, was a small door, not a regular door, a hatch almost, maybe 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide. Old wood, dark at the edges. It was perfectly level with where my feet would be while I was lying down, which meant it would be the first thing I saw if I woke up in the middle of the night. I crouched down and tried the handle. Locked from the other side. I told myself it was storage, extra linens, a utility panel. That's what those little doors are for, maintenance access. I told myself that over and over as I got ready for bed, and I told myself that for a long while after I turned off the light. Somewhere in the night, I woke up. I don't know what hour it was, but something had pulled me out of sleep. A sound. A soft tapping. Rhythmic and steady, not frantic, not violent. Patient. It was coming from somewhere near the foot of the bed. I lay completely still, every muscle locked, listening. The tapping continued at the same even pace. My hand moved slowly toward my phone on the nightstand, and I turned on the flashlight as fast as I could and aimed it toward the sound. The tapping stopped the instant the light hit the wall. I was out of that house in under 3 minutes, grabbed what I needed, didn't bother with the rest, and reversed back down that gravel path in the dark. As my headlights swept around, they caught something at the side of the house. A shape. Low to the ground. A man lying still in the dirt behind the building. I drove for 30 minutes without slowing down before I pulled over and texted the host. There may be someone in your house. Please call the police. I watched the message deliver. Then, almost immediately, it showed as read. A few seconds passed. Then a minute. Then several. The host never replied. If that story gave you chills, hit the like button right now. And if you haven't subscribed to the Id Shadow yet, do it before the next story. Because it only gets harder to explain from here. Story 2, The Neighbor. My boyfriend and I had gone to Michigan to spend a few days with my family. And if you've ever had a complicated relationship with your parents, you already understand why we booked our own place to stay, rather than sleeping under their roof. We found a charming little 1-bedroom condo about 15 minutes from my parents' house. Modern renovations, a warm aesthetic, good reviews from most guests. The host seemed friendly and attentive, but scattered among the positive comments were a few reviews that gave us a moment of pause. Several guests had mentioned unusual experiences with a neighbor. Nothing specific, just a recurring thread. We reached out to the host before booking and asked about it directly. She explained that the neighbor was simply very protective of the building, a little territorial with new faces. She told us she would personally let the neighbor know we were coming and what we looked like, so there shouldn't be any friction. We decided that was reasonable. We've all dealt with difficult neighbors. We booked the place and didn't think much more about it. The day we arrived, everything went smoothly. We met the host, got the key to the building entrance and the code to our unit, unpacked, and headed to my parents for dinner. It was a pleasant evening, though I may have had a couple of drinks to take the edge off. By around 10 o'clock, we were ready to head back. We pulled into the parking lot of the complex. The building had 4 units total, 2 on the ground floor, 2 upstairs. Ours was the upper left. Out of habit, I glanced up at the building as I stepped out of the car. In the upper right window, half concealed behind a curtain, someone was standing, completely still, looking directly down at us. We walked toward the entrance. She didn't move. My boyfriend unlocked the front door and we stepped into the shared entryway. And she was there, standing at the top of the staircase. She must have moved from the window and positioned herself there without making a single sound that we heard from outside. She was small, 60, maybe 70 years old. But something about how she was holding herself, arms slightly away from her sides, spine rigid, didn't read as an elderly woman at rest. It read as something deliberate, something braced. She watched us walk up the entire staircase, never spoke, never moved. We entered our apartment, locked the door behind us, and stood in the hallway for a moment, just looking at each other. We managed to fall asleep. At nearly 4 in the morning, something woke us. A pounding on the front door. Not a knock, a full force pounding. Hard and rhythmic, without pause, for what felt like a minute or two. And then absolute silence. My boyfriend looked through the peephole, then cracked the door open. He gasped. Laid across the welcome mat outside our door were 2 dead rats. Gutted. One of them was missing its head entirely. We reported everything to the host, barely slept the rest of the night, and at around 6:30 in the morning I gave up on sleep and went to make coffee. The kitchen window looked out over the parking lot. I glanced down. The neighbor was standing beside our car, not passing by, not loading anything into her own vehicle, standing still, next to the driver's side window, staring into it, as if she sensed me watching. She turned her head and looked straight up at the window, directly at me. Then the screaming started. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere not fully in control, raw and animal and without any shape to it. She grabbed the roof of our car with both hands and began slamming her head against the driver's side window, screaming the same words on a loop. They never leave. When will they leave? Why do they keep coming? I recorded everything. My boyfriend called the police. By the time officers arrived, she was on the ground beside the car, still muttering quietly. It took considerable time to get her into handcuffs. She resisted the entire way. The host refunded our stay completely. She apologized over and over and told us nothing like this had ever happened before. We never found out what had fractured inside that woman. Whether it was something that had been building for years or whether something simply snapped in the night, we couldn't say. What I can tell you is this: those reviews that mentioned the neighbor, we read them before we booked. We read them and we talked ourselves out of taking them seriously. Don't do that. Read every review, especially the ones that make you uncomfortable. Comment below right now and tell me where in the world you're watching from. We are one story away from the finish, and this last one is the one I still haven't made peace with. Story 3. The Woman Without Headlights. The summer after our sophomore year of college, 4 of us decided to do it properly. We'd been working small jobs near campus all year, saving up, and when finals were done, we wanted to spend it on something we'd remember. We chose Las Vegas. None of us had ever been, and we went all in. We found the biggest Airbnb listing we could, the one with the most rooms and the most space, and we booked it for several days. The house was even more impressive in person. We arrived, unpacked, and spent a couple of hours just relaxing and settling in. By around 8 or 8:30 in the evening, 2 of our group had already gone to bed. The travel had worn them out. My friend Alyssa and I were still wide awake with nowhere to be. She suggested we take a walk and see the neighborhood. It looked beautiful. Well-maintained homes, quiet streets. Nothing about it that suggested we should think twice. So we headed out. After passing 6 or 7 houses, the street bent sharply around a corner onto a crossing road, and everything changed. The homes on this street were barely standing. Broken windows patched with plastic sheeting, front doors boarded over, vacant notices so weathered the text had almost faded to nothing. One yard had an old armchair sitting in the middle of the grass, split open at the seams, like whoever left it there never came back for it. We didn't slow down. We took the next turn toward home. That's when the car appeared behind us. No headlights. A dark SUV, moving slowly in our direction, drifting rather than driving, and then easing to a stop, right alongside us. The driver's window came down. A woman leaned out. She was perhaps 60 years old, maybe older. She had a wide smile, but her movements were wrong. Her head and arms jerked in small, uneven ways, like the signals between her brain and her body were arriving slightly out of order. She looked at us both and said, "You two are such a cute couple." I said thank you and kept walking without breaking stride. She pulled away in the opposite direction. Alyssa and I looked at each other and kept moving, breathing again. We were halfway up the driveway to the Airbnb when her SUV rounded the corner onto our street. No headlights still. She stopped directly in front of the house and looked at us through the windshield. No smile this time, no jerking movements. Just a face in the dark, watching. Alyssa went inside. I followed and closed the door. Through the window, I watched the car ease back down the road and disappear. We locked every door, checked every window, stayed up another hour talking each other down before finally going to bed. The next evening, we were out in the city doing what we'd actually come to do. It was a good day, all things considered. On the ride back, my phone buzzed with a message from the Airbnb owner. It said, "Is this the lady from last night?" There was a photo attached, a screenshot from the Ring doorbell camera. She was standing outside our front door, in the dark, staring directly into the lens, not knocking, not moving, just standing there, as though she had all the time in the world and nowhere else to be. The owner called the police. We had our driver drop us 2 blocks away and waited in a hotel parking lot while officers cleared the property. They found nothing. No sign of her anywhere on the street. We spent that night with our bags packed, barely sleeping, and left for the airport as early as we possibly could the next morning. I have thought about that woman more times than I can count. What she wanted. What she would have done if the camera hadn't been there. What would have happened on the 3rd night. The night we ended up cutting short. I don't have answers to any of it. The only reason we knew she had been standing outside that door was because someone had installed a camera. Take the camera away and we sleep through the night believing we were safe, never knowing she was 6 feet away in the dark, staring at the door between us. Always check the area around an Airbnb before you book it. Use Street View. Read the reviews, all of them, including the vague ones, the ones that trail off, the ones that say something felt off. without ever explaining what. Pay attention to those especially, because what you don't know isn't nothing. Sometimes what you don't know is standing right outside your door. That's all for tonight on The Id's Shadow. If these stories stayed with you, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find the channel. Subscribe so you're here for the next one, and leave a comment right now. Where in the world are you watching from? I want to know. Stay safe out there. Lock your doors tonight. And before you go to sleep, just make sure you know what's on the other side